By the end of 2026, the contours of 21st century geopolitics will be much clearer. In global politics, 2025 was the year when an old order ended. President Donald Trump demolished decades old norms and institutions as dramatically as he said about reshaping the White House. He started burgeoned the multilateral trade system, the machinery of international diplomacy, from the UN to the foreign aid, was hit by Americans' founding cuts. Long-standing security alliances were refashioned into more transactional relationships, which monetize American military and economic heft. At home, Mr. Trump unleashed the most expensive assertion of executive power in a century. Soldiers were sent into Democrat-run cities, with universities brought to heel with threats and funding cuts. The independence of the Federal Reserve attacked, and the machinery of government deployed against the president's foes. The dizzying pace and scale of these actions made it hard to tell what they added up to. Was this much needed disruption to a sclerotic system or an assault on basic pillars of America's democracy? Was the transactional deal making an innovative new way to get things done, or the triumph of mafioso tactics over long-term strategic wisdom? There was alarm, including from the economist, about the threats of protectionism, corruption, the politicization of independent institutions, and, as the year went on, a growing unease that Team Trump does not feel bound by the law. True, the president's Sopranos-style leadership brought real success. The most obvious was the ceasefire in Gaza. It created the potential for a new beginning and vindicated his much derided New York real estate style of diplomacy. Getting tough with NATO allies led to increase in defense budgets that few would have thought possible a year ago. And in spats between smaller countries, a president craving a Nobel Peace Prize willing to threaten tariffs and twist arms helped solve or at least paper over disputes. But there are also clear failures. Strategically, the imposition of punitive tariffs on India, ostensibly as punishment for buying oil from Russia and Brazil from putting Jair Bolsonaro on trial, made little sense. Both decisions will push those countries closer to China. Mr. Trump made little headway with Vladimir Putin, and he was outmaneuvered by Xi Jinping. China was clear winner from 2025's trade brinkmanship. Fortunately, tariffs did not sink the global economy. 6 months after Liberation Day, the revenue raise the tariff suggests an effective average American rate of just over 10%, much lower than expected back in April. Retaliation was limited and a 1930s style trade war avoided. Instead, countries cut deals and importers took much of their hit from tariffs. Meanwhile, Team Trump's energetic slashing of the regulatory state, enthusiasm for crypto assets, and hell for leather determination that America should win the race for artificial intelligence fueled a remarkable stock market boom, which boosted a strikingly resilient economy. That boom, coupled with a fear of retribution, shaped a uniform narrative among business leaders. Whatever the war was heading, when the collective view America's economy would thrive. Few were willing to voice concern, and certainly not in public. With the old order in ruins, the contours of the new war will become much clearer in 2026. In the three main areas: First, the future of Western liberal democracies. The midterm elections in November will determine whether America is at serious risk of quasi-total authoritarianism. If Democrats win control of the House of Representatives, there will be a meaningful check on the Trump administration. If history is a guide, they should win. But these are not normal times. The Democrats are even less popular than Trump, and there is a credible risk the administration could try to interfere with America's election machinery. On the other side of the Atlantic, 2026 will show whether MAGA-style populist nationalists are on the cusp of power in Europe's biggest economies. In Britain, where Nigel Farage's Reform UK party leads in the polls, local government elections will reveal whether that lead translates into votes, and thus, when a general election is next called, the chances of Prime Minister Farage. In France, recent history suggests another government collapse is all too likely in 2026. That would force parliamentary elections and probably lead to Jordan Bardella as France's first prime minister from the populist right. In Germany, it will become apparent whether the firewall against the hard right alternative for Germany can hold. The second area of clarity will be in geopolitics. In 2026, Trumpian transactionalism will evolve into a curious hybrid of erratic peacemaking around the world, muscular interventionism in America's backyard, and opportunistic deal-making around critical supply chains. Mr. Trump's desire for a Nobel Prize will keep him engaged in the Middle East. He will prevent Israel from returning to full-blown war in Gaza and will push for a pardon for Benjamin Netanyahu and perhaps a grateful political exit. Mr. Trump may also play peacemaker elsewhere, particularly where rare earth deals can be extracted. But faced with intransigence from Mr. Putin, America will leave Ukraine's future to Europe, which, absorbed by the populist right's rise, might fail to step up to that responsibility. The clearest signals of where America's foreign policy is heading will come from Asia and Latin America. In Asia, prepare for Mr. Trump's desire to do business with China to lead to a dangerous erosion of support for Taiwan. America's strategy ambiguity may give way to studied nonchalance, especially if a weakening American economy makes it more important for Mr. Trump to strike a big trade deal with China. The Western Hemisphere, in contrast, will see heavy-handed use of American power, combining support for ideological fellow travelers, Javier Milei in Argentina and Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, with unashamed bullying of ideological foes, except attempts at regime change in Venezuela and efforts to sway elections, for instance, in Colombia. Belligerence in Latin America will be a useful prop for a president keen to look though on immigration, crime and drugs. The third area of clarity, for good or ill, will be on the economy. Whether or not there is a severe market correction, surging share prices will not underpin confidence as they did in 2025, nor will the productivity transforming impact of artificial intelligence appear as quickly as boosters hope. Damage from tariffs will become more evident. Pressure on consumers more burdensome, and the unsustainability of Americans' budget deficits more obvious. Mr. Trump's choice for the next chair of the Federal Reserve will show whether central bank independence is over or not. Given the mess other rich countries are in, a stampede from the dollar is unlikely. But by the end of 2026, America's economy may not seem quite so exceptional. Paradoxically, that might be good outcome. A weaker economy would raise the Democrats' chances of retaking the House and restoring some checks in America's democracy. Nervous financial makers might also deter White House revolutionaries from their most egregious constitutional shenanigans. And a weaker economy might even encourage greater pragmatism from Mr. Trump himself. Maybe it is time for a brave businessman or two to say publicly that for America's long term health, some short term bumps in the road would be not a bad thing. Tammy Minton Beddoes, Editor in Chief of The Economist.